Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Administration and Public Works Committee. We have a quorum, and could we have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the May 12th meeting?
Move approval of minutes of regular meeting of May 12th, 2014.
Is there a second? It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I ask for your approval of A1, City of Evanston payroll through May 4th, 2014, in the amount of $2,514,169.76. I also ask for your approval of A2, City of Evanston bills through May 28th, 2014, in the amount of $2,192,895.08.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Did everyone get a chance to look at the bills list? Any other questions? It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we've been joined by Alderman Brathwaite now, so.
Madam Chair, I move approval of A3.1, and that is requesting the city manager to execute a contract for the 2014 water main replacement and street resurfacing CIP2 project to A-Lamp Concrete Contractors in the amount of $2,548,361.25. Funding is from a variety of sources, including the Water Fund, the Sewer Fund, and the Capital Improvement Plan Street Resurfacing Account.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Are there any questions, comments? I don't have any speakers on that. Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, A32 is the next one, approval of the 2014 Street Improvement CIP3, contract with A-Lamp Concrete Contractors Incorporated, bid 14-31. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the city manager to execute a contract for in the amount of $1,127,934.10. Funding will be from the CIP resurfacing account in the amount of $334.10, and the pedestrian safety account in the amount of $60,000, and from the sewer fund in the amount of $206,600.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Are there any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Alderman Brathwaite, will you take A3.3?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move for approval the changes to the ADT alarm monitoring agreement. Staff is recommending the City Council authorize City Manager to execute a new agreement with ADT Security Systems for the monitoring for city facilities, and that I think with a budget of $37,500, and that's for action.
Okay.
Second.
There's been moved in second. Are there any questions, comments? All in favor?
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Alderman Rainey.
It's okay. Madam Chair, I'm wondering, does this affect the fee that we're going to be charging for alarms, since they're not going to be monitored in any way? I mean, if we're not going to be bothered by false alarms, why would we charge a fee?
Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Perry Polinsky, 911 Communications Coordinator. This will not have any effect on the current false alarm charges. Currently, the alarms are directly connected, the city alarms are directly connected to the 911 center via antiquated copper vanity alarm circuits through AT&T at a cost of $125 per city connection per month. This will convert those alarms to more advanced wireless technology at a cost of $55 per month.
No, I get that, but what about the alarms that people have that send messages to the station? We have that, right?
Yes.
Through the Direct Connect system. The first step will be transitioning the city alarms off of that direct connect alarm receiver in the 911 center, transitioning them to wireless, which would then be monitored through ADT. And eventually, the alarm receiver in the 911 center will go away.
Right. So then will we, I mean, I got a little confused. Then will we not charge for monitoring those alarms?
They will be monitored by ADT, not by our 911
Right,
center.
so why
we're-
would we charge them? We wouldn't charge people.
We pay now a yearly fee.
Yeah, we
That's
pay a
what
yearly
Alderman Runyon is
fee.
referring to. You pay for a
I'm
yearly
trying-
fee.
Yeah, I think it is confusing because we have to separate what the alarms that we are monitoring for city facilities
Yep.
from the residential and commercial
Right.
alarms.
But I'm only concerned about the residential and commercial alarms. Will those alarms that currently exist coming into the city continue to come into the city under this plan or any
They
plan?
They will. What ADT will eventually do is decommission our alarm receiver and move those business and residential customers either to their wireless product or if the customers find something more cost appealing. through
Okay, we're
another-
getting to where I want to go now.
Yeah, well,
We're getting
'cause
to it. So at that point, we will have no reason
Charge
to be
people.
charging people for monitoring their alarm or charging them for false alarms because we won't know that there are false alarms. ADT can do that.
Correct. That's one of the appealing factors, having alarms go to a central station, is if the dog trips it accidentally, the homeowner can call the central station ADT and cut it off before it even gets relayed to us to dispatch.
I know that. That part I understand. I just know that one of the irritating charges we have is the charge for monitoring or charging people for false alarms that come directly to us. Because the argument, and if anybody here who remembers Alderman Drummer, is the reason I have this alarm is so that if it goes off, the cops will come and figure out whether or not false alarm or I've been robbed. How do I know in advance that it's going to be a false alarm? And so I shouldn't be charged for that. I understand, like, we used to have hospitals with 20, 30 false alarms a day. Really, we did, some of the hospitals. And Northwestern, too. But they used to pay the fine, but now there won't, that hookup, that connection won't exist for us to be troubled by and inconvenienced by, correct? Eventually.
That's correct. We'll still get the alarms, but phoned in from ADT Central
Yeah.
Station.
But ADT might figure out that it's a false alarm and not send it to us.
Right, and getting off of these antiquated alarm circuits through AT&T, that should minimize the number of line trouble alarms because those lines are temperamental. On an evening like tonight with the rain, it trips false alarms.
And if you already have ADT, is there any effect on that? I mean, because a lot of people have that service already. I know I do.
We only have about 125 direct connections to our alarm receiver. Over the years, that number has declined. So there are still a lot of alarm subscribers who have service through alarm company's central station that get relayed to us. They just don't come directly to our center.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Well, yeah, but the difference is you still pay the $30 a year, I think it is.
For the alarm permit.
Right.
So whether you're connected to the 911 center directly or your alarm goes to a central station, there's still that alarm permit fee and there's still the false alarm charges.
Right. Okay.
We got to come and go.
Either way. Okay. All right.
We should take a look at that.
I think we have to. I think we have to. Okay, it's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I move approval of A4, Resolution 25-R-14, Law Enforcement Mutual Aid Agreement, and the existence and formation of the Illinois Law Enforcement Alarm System by intergovernmental cooperation.
Is there a second? It's been moved in second.
Thank you.
Are there any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 8-5, Alderman Rainey?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt Resolution 26R14, which authorizes the manager to execute an emergency equipment memorandum of understanding between the city and Cook County Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management to provide emergency event and disaster response assistance through the use of Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management emergency equipment when local resources are insufficient to meet the response needs of the city of Evanston.
It's been moved in second. Are there any questions, comments?
Do they have special equipment? It just concerns me that we would be relying on the county to get us extra equipment. I don't know. I mean, what do we know about this?
I don't know, and I don't know. Oh, Chief is here to address it.
You mean like their dog, things like that?
Good evening, Madam Chairman and Alderman. This agreement covers primarily physical assets that we would borrow in a case of an emergency, a significant emergency. Mobile command posts, generators, lighting towers. If the size of the emergency exceeded our ability to cope with this is the place we're going to go for those assets.
But they don't just mean police equipment, like if our service center burned down and we needed garbage trucks and, you know.
Yeah,
Things like
they will
that.
facilitate whatever we're in need
Right.
of.
So it's not necessarily just police or security issues.
Right. It's broader than that.
Okay.
And the agreement was vetted by the law department as per usual, and it was found to be in compliance with our needs.
Yeah. It's a good thing if they, hopefully we don't ever have to use it.
I
Do
hope
we have
so.
to pay anything for it?
And only if we break something.
Okay. It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, A6, Resolution 31-R-14, renewal of the easement agreement with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. Staff recommends City Council adoption of Resolution 31-R-14, authorizing the city manager to execute an easement agreement with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, which will allow the city to maintain and repair an existing 48-inch diameter storm sewer along Popular Avenue.
Second.
Okay, are there any, it's been moved and second, are there any questions, comments? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Alderman Brathwaite?
Sure. Madam Chair, I'd like to move item A7, Resolution 39-R-14 regarding Howard Hartree TIF surplus. Staff recommends the City Council adoption of Resolution 39-R-14 declaring a surplus of $1 million from the Howard Hartree tax increment TIF district at the end of 2013, fiscal year 2013.
There's a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any comments? Alderman Rainey?
I hate this. I just hate losing one penny out of this TIF. But it seems that we have this agreement to forfeit $1 million to all the taxing districts, not just because it's surplus. Marty did call me and try to explain this, but we have more expenditures in these few short years left on this TIF than, I don't know, maybe any other TIF, and I'm just not sure how we figure these dollars. So if Marty's around, he did a wonderful job explaining it to me one time.
Marty Lyons is not
Marty's
available.
Oh, he's not here tonight.
He's not here
Okay.
tonight.
All right.
Here comes Wally.
Here comes Wally. I'm sorry I didn't call earlier today.
No, that's fine. Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, good evening.
Did you hear what I asked?
I heard
about?
bits of this. Mr. Lyons is in the village of Niles with their village board selling water this evening. So,
Yes.
I'd be happy to read through the staff report at council to talk more about it there. Have definitely heard Alderman Rainey's concerns about the investments of infrastructure projects that are needed in the TIF. We believe we can still cover those projects with the disbursements. So that's,
Well, I know. Yeah,
and this
I
is
know.
part of a longer discussion we've had with Alderman Rainey over a couple of years, where we've heard loud and clear she wants to make sure that the dollars are available in the TIF to make those infrastructure investments. So
The one specific issue is I saw no reference in here to Culvers. And that concerned me. I'm just wondering if that were overlooked. Another question I have is when the disbursement was figured, was it figured to disperse to the township also?
I believe it was not figured because the township is no longer in existence.
No, I know it is no longer today.
My understanding
But
is
when
it was-
these numbers were done, I believe that it was in existence.
My understanding is that that then folds into our piece of all this, the City of Evanston's piece.
No.
I'm happy to talk with Mr. Lyons between now and the council meeting regarding the Culvers piece. I'll also get a hold of Ms. Knighton, and we can have this answer to council if that's all right.
Okay.
That'll be fine.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, A8, and we have A8, we have speakers, so.
I'll move it in second.
Let's
and then
move it and we'll.
kick it, yeah.
Okay.
I ask that you move ordinance 64-0-14, alley paving special assessment number 1511, by which city council would authorize paving of the alley north of Leonard Place, east of Wesley Avenue, through the special assessment process. Funding is provided by the special assessment account in the amount of $99,900.68 and $99,968 from the 2014 approved CIP budget for alley paving. The adjacent property owners are responsible for half of the project costs through the special assessment process.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Now, we have speakers who've signed up to speak, and I'll call them in the order that they've signed up. That's Jules Marling, Marla Gunderson, Stephanie Rigger, R-I-G-E-R, and Dan Lewis.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the council. My name is Jules Marling, and I'm a resident at 1319 Leonard Place, and I guess I'm the guy who sort of spearheaded this whole project. Starting last year, we just noticed, over the years, I've been living in the house for about 12 years now, and we've just noticed a lot of buildup of water and potholes in the alley, and they'll come through and scrape it once a year usually, and then within a week or so, those potholes reappear. And what's happened, I think, is they put a lot of gravel over the alley over the years as well, and it just kind of builds up, and there's just nowhere for the water to go. There's no drainage, so it's really a pretty serious drainage problem, and it creates a lot of mud and standing water from mosquitoes and bacteria. And we just sort of think, I went through the process. I didn't really know how it worked. I saw some alleys were getting paved, and so I came over here and met with the Engineering and Public Works Department. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with everything that they did. They were very helpful in explaining the process to me. So I thought I'd just take it up with my neighbors, and I walked around and knocked on a few doors, and very quickly I had the requisite 7 signatures out of 14, and we even got an 8th. And at that point, I went ahead and submitted the petition, and they had a great meeting here a few weeks back where they explained the whole project to us, how it all works, how the water is going to drain away into sort of a concave V shape and connect into the storm sewer. So I think it's a great program. My neighbors are really excited about it, and there are a few opposed, and I understand it's a cost. It's not a cheap endeavor, but I think that on balance, I think it really is going to add more to not only our quality of life, but also the property values. So I think it's really a winning proposition for our block. So I also brought a couple of pictures, if you guys will indulge me, just to show you the state of the alley, if you'd like to pass them around.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
We love paving alleys. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Get those alleys.
Okay, Marla? Okay.
Hi, Madam Chair. I'm Marla Gunderson. I live at 2148 Asbury, and I'm one of the signers of the petition for the alley. I also would agree with everything that he's already said about the improvement to our neighborhood, and the alley situation is really a dismal one, and I'm just here in support of it. There's 8 signatures, and it was already approved by the prior committee, so I'm here in support of that.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, a small child could drown.
Absolutely, yeah, you could. It's like many other alleys that we have in the community, unfortunately, and we do grade them. We try to all get on first on the list in the spring as soon as it's warm to call and make sure that we get alleys graded, but they don't last a long time, and we're very much aware of that. Okay, Stephanie?
My name is Stephanie Rieger. I live at 1304 Noy Street, and I'm also on this alley. I've lived on this alley for over 30 years. It has occasional big puddles, like the pictures that you see, but despite the puddles, everyone has managed to get into their garages. The puddles don't stop people from getting in their garages, and the puddles are very temporary. They last for a while after a big rain, and then they're gone. Adding more concrete to the environment by paving the alley goes against good environmental practice. Furthermore, the paving is designed to channel water from the alley into the street. And Noy Street already floods whenever we have a heavy rain, and channeling more water into Noy Street is only going to exacerbate that problem. So by attempting to solve one problem, you are making another problem worse. The total cost of the project is almost $200,000 to appease 8 households who said that they wanted this. That strikes me as an awful lot of money for 8 households. Why not take the almost $100,000 of the city's money and use it for something that would benefit everybody who lives in Evanston, like filling up some of the potholes or giving the money to the city schools? The 6 households that did not say they wanted it would also be forced to pay over $7,000 for this project. I moved to Evanston because I wanted to live in a community that had a diversity of people in it. I think special assessments of over $7,000 mean that only rich people will be able to live in our community after a while. I think this will contribute to destroying the diversity that we have in Evanston, and I think that would be a shame. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey, and then we have Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the alley paving program takes into consideration the inability of some people to pay, and therefore we have a program where we will pay the entire assessment of people who are unable to pay. Secondly, the water is not directed to Noy Street. One of the reasons why alley paving is expensive is because of drainage that we put in the alley. The alleys drain into the drainage. The water goes not into your garages, not into your lawns, not onto Noy Street. It stays right where it is and into the drainage.
We're going to have one of the staff respond to this after I have the speaker speak.
But we've all had alleys paved in our wards, and
Absolutely.
the same complaints come up. But once the alley is paved, it makes life so much better. It's so much cleaner, and we do put paving in. That is true. But we also have an alley that is a green alley. But if you would like to have a green alley, that's even more expensive. So.
We were told in a meeting a few weeks ago that the water would run into the street. That's why I'm saying that.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Our staff will come up and explain why somebody said that.
Right, we'll have him address that. I'm just going to get through the speakers first, and then we'll have staff address concerns. Mr. Lewis?
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see lots of you. I'm Dan Lewis. I live at 1304 Noyes. My wife Stephanie spoke for our family here just a moment ago. As many of you know, I'm the director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Northwestern, where I've been for the last 30 years. And I've spent a lot of my time in the last 5 or 6 years working on better collaboration between the university and the city of Evanston. I think the 8-6 split on this alley paving is important for all of you to take into consideration. Obviously, I know what a majority is here, but quite a few of the more senior people in the neighborhood voted against this, mainly because of the expense, and also, as my spouse said, because I think the money could be spent on other things in Evanston where there's a much greater need. So I wish that you'd consider perhaps not going with the majority on this and seeing if there are better ways to spend that money. Thank you.
Alderman Burris?
Sure.
Before I call.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused by a petition that was circulated by a resident is the only thing that triggers this. So my confusion on that is that, one, it's not anonymous, so when you're trying to put a speed bump on the street, a petition that that a resident brings forward, we just say, okay, you got a petition, now we'll send out postcards to get anonymous feedback. And we don't even charge people for speed bumps. So I'm actually concerned about the process here because there's peer pressure when someone comes to your door and says, will you sign a petition? And it's costing you money. So why aren't we doing signing the petition and then sending out anonymous postcards to find out if there's 50% or more when we're doing it for speed bumps? Why? I have real problems with this process. It's not fair. It's really
there's
really
a public
serious
hearing
problem.
as well. The public hearing was held on May 7th, where it's in my word, where all of the residents can come and voice their opinions. And I'm sure
Did all the residents
A
that
lot of
signed the
residents-
petitions come? I mean, I find it, if we're going to do it for speed bumps, that we want anonymous petitions for speed bumps, but we're not going to do anonymous when we're asking people to spend $7,000. That's a serious problem in our process.
Well, we may have to look at the process again, but I want to say to you that I think, and I'm trying to remember the speed bumps. It's been such a long time since I've had a request for one. But I do know that once the petition has gotten back to the staff, then it's initiated with the public hearing, which then gives all of the citizens opportunity. And I know people who opposed came to the meeting because they sent me emails. I'm sure you got the emails. I've gotten emails from almost everyone on those blocks. I really have, both for and against.
But for the speed bumps, this team right here will not allow speed bumps to go forward unless the petition, the postcards are sent out and they get a number of postcards back. They will not allow it to go forward. And that's why I'm concerned here that we're allowing this to go forward without anonymous input. So what I'm asking is, you're saying the city will pay for something, but we won't just accept a petition that a citizen brings forward. But when you're asking citizens to pay for something, we will accept a petition that a citizen brings forward, and we're not doing it anonymously. I just think that is not appropriate at all.
Well, maybe we'll have to look at the process again, but Alderman Rainey wanted to speak and then said,
I definitely want to speak.
Then let staff speak.
A speed hump has nothing to do with charging the people for it.
I know.
This is a very public process. The courts determine how this operates. The courts, not the city of Evanston, the courts determine. The courts determine what you will pay. The courts determine when you'll pay it. We've allowed for a 10-year payback.
Right.
But this is not a simple process. This is a process where people need to stand up and say, yes, I'm willing to pay. No, there is absolutely no pressure when you're being asked to pay several $1,000s. People, I have a woman in my ward who tried for 25 years to get alleys paved. 25 years. Last year she succeeded. But 25 years, a majority of the people adjacent to the alley said no, 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 no. Every year she'd bring a pay. And finally she got a group of people who agreed to do it. People need to stand up and be counted when they're being asked to pay $7,000. When you say 51%, 51% is this many, and then if the other 49% don't want it, it goes to the majority, just like in an election. 90% of the people frequently do not vote in an election where you're electing people who are going to govern you for the next 4 years or 2 years.
But elections are anonymous.
Well, because they're
anonymous, and
people are going to be assessed money.
Exactly.
Oh, I think you're wrong. I think you're totally wrong, and I would not support an anonymous petition for alley paving.
Then we shouldn't do it for street humps either, is my point. If you're not, then we shouldn't have to have an anonymous postcard for street bumps if we're not going to have it for alley paving. You have to do both, or either or.
I don't think there are any streets left without humps, so we don't.
No, trust me, they are in the 9th Ward.
Okay. All right. I just want to give you just a little hope on this. There was a time when the residents had to pay it all. I bought my house in 1962, and we took 10 years to pay for our alley, and we paid all of it. I mean, the residents on that. So at least now we have some relief, and we can assist people if they're not able to pay it.
Doris, I have one more comment. So there's a really terrible alley right across the street from my house, and actually Jim Mayworm came out to look at it and said it's one of the 10 worst in the city. We're not paving it. He's doing a process where he'll be able to dredge most of it out because it's been built up. So it's not draining into people's garages. And the city is taking on the full cost of that. So it's not, so we're able to do something else than just to pave it. So there are alternatives versus charging people a lot of money. Again, many people that can't afford it or don't want this for environmental reasons. So there are alternatives.
And that has been done almost in every alley, and that alley hasn't. There are alleys that I have in my ward,
I do too.
that, and this one being in my ward as well, had been through that process. But then there comes a time when there's nothing else left to do. Now, again, I'm going to let Alderman Rainey speak, but we have to remember that the process is 50. You're absolutely right. It's 51% of the residents. So, and
just want
we're not
consistency.
cutting, but we're not. And I hear you.
Not with speed bumps.
Speed bumps and alley paving are different.
Then they shouldn't allow it to be, make it anonymous for speed bumps, that they're going to not make it anonymous for alley paving, and when they're charging people money. They need to be consistent, and this department is not.
Well, then will you make a reference, and then we'll have
I
that?
will.
Okay, make a reference for that, and then we'll take care of that in another way. Okay?
Dredging out alleys
is one thing.
and costs all of the taxpayers in this town hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. And, I just get tired of paying for other people's alleys, and I know they get tired of paying for mine. So the answer, the real economical solution, and the safe solution really, is to pave the alleys. We have a special assessment process. We allow for people who cannot afford. People know at the time they're going through this that there's a program to help people pay for this. There is. And, we're all paying for these alleys to be dredged and graded and whatever. So I would just like to hear from our staff what the legal process is and how we're violating it.
Okay. Director Robinson?
Good evening, committee. I'm Suzette Robinson, the Director of Public Works. The the 51% and the special assessment process is as Alderman Rainey indicated, a legal process, and it is dictated by the courts how we charge. There are certain processes that we have to take in terms of how we apportion the cost out within the alley, and we have to clearly identify that, and we have to have the petition signed, and we have to hold a public hearing in which we address all of those issues, and we did that for this alley as we do for everyone before we can even go to court to file that's the process that we have to follow ahead of time. As far as the petition goes, typically there's a resident who would like to have the alley paved, and they contact us and request a petition. Incorporated in that petition is an estimated cost. We do an estimate of what it would cost each household. They take that information and they go around and they collect signatures. Usually they stop when they get to 51%. Sometimes they'll go to 70%. It just depends who's at home, because they have to knock door to door to make sure that they actually have the actual homeowner that signs the petition. And then they turn all of that information into us, and we in turn notify all of the owners in advance of the hearing that we're going to hold the hearing, what the cost is, that they've reached the 51% requirement, and we send that out and invite all of the residents to the public hearing. With regards to the speed hump situation, when people call and they ask for a speed hump, and sometimes we don't have a petitioner, it could be a request, say an alderman decides that they would like a speed hump, on a particular block. The postcard, the reason why we do postcards, because we can send those out and we don't have to have a person responsible for knocking door to door. So it's an easier process, and we usually get a higher response rate in terms of the yes and the no's, as opposed to somebody walking around and knocking door to door. But we could certainly have a petition process as opposed to sending the postcards out.
The point is, your department, the Streets Department, we've had petitions, and they've said absolutely they will not accept the petitions, that they must also send the postcards. So it wasn't an either or, it's an and. So that is my point, and we could also, for the alley paving, we could have a higher standard to say we want it to be anonymous versus just citizens giving petitions. My point is you're not consistent. Your Streets Department is not consistent, and that is the problem.
Well, what happened as it relates to the petition, sometimes residents will go out and write up their own petition and send it out, and you're right, we won't accept that. We will give you a petition that you have to return.
They've been given the petition from Public Works, they've done the petition, and your streets people have said that they also must send out the postcards. I'm saying be consistent on this.
City Manager.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, certainly we are happy to implement whatever policies the City Council directs us to. We are implementing council policies, and if the council wishes to change policies, we'll change them.
Not when the legislator has told us how it has to be.
Right.
And I think we can come back at a future meeting and talk about.
Absolutely. That's why I asked Alderman Burris to make a reference so that we can look and we can compare, and then we can see where we need to go with it. I think.
And if there are opportunities for additional outreach above and beyond what state law requires, that's an option for the council to consider. But let me stress that our Public Works Department is doing what this council has directed over a long period of time with these issues. Things change, and if the council wishes to reevaluate, that's fine. But I would want to be clear that we are implementing council policy on these matters.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, also, I think it should be pointed out that we have a, what do you call it, Public Works Committee, not Public Works, but
Board of Local Improvement.
Board of Local Improvements.
Right.
committee that meets to make these determinations also. They hear the public hearing, and
As
then they
directed by the
present it.
council, and I believe the Evanston City Code. So again, maybe it's an opportunity for us to bring all this back.
And look at it, that's all.
For discussion. These are longstanding procedures and policies, and if there are opportunities to make adjustments, so be it.
Okay.
And also, it could be pointed out also that in some neighborhoods, especially those neighborhoods that are community development block grant neighborhoods, we actually do free alley paving if the number of low and moderate income people meet the standard. Nobody pays in that case, but community development block grant in the
Right.
city.
Absolutely.
So it's not like only rich people get alley paving.
Okay.
And if
You're
rich
right.
people don't want alley paving, they ought to come out and say no.
Yeah.
They're 51%, their alley won't get paved.
Well, we know, and I'm sure even the people who are dissenting understand that the process in terms of the majority rules, I mean, it's as simple as that. We did have that. Are there any other comments? If not, it has been moved and
Could I
seconded.
make one other comment?
Yes,
About
Alderman Rainey.
the 51%. In most cases, except in primary elections, the majority rules. It doesn't have to be 51%. In this case,
has to be 51.
The state says it has to be 51%. The courts say it has to be 51%, which makes it a larger majority than, just one more than the last one. So it seems to me that it's been covered, but, I mean,
But again, it's not anonymous. You're under peer pressure, and that is the issue that I'm addressing, is the peer pressure issue, not...
how can you be peer pressured into spending $7,000?
People
You'd
do
have
it-
to be stupid.
Well, people are peer pressured all the time, and I'm sure that some of these residents, they're out there knocking on doors saying, will you sign this, really do this? It's hard for people to say no to their residents or their neighbors. It's a very difficult thing to do. My only point is I would like another layer so it allows people to say no without having to confront their neighbors. How many times do we get calls that their neighbors are terrified to talk to someone next door to them about something that's happening, and they call us or they call the police to fix it because they don't want to upset their neighbor? All the time. I would say that we get calls constantly, and I think it's unfair.
We're going
for
to
them do
we're
that.
going to review it, so I think that will at least.
I just wanted to say that even if they come in and a petition is signed, they can call engineering and withdraw their yes vote.
And then what do you let the person who brought the petition around, do you tell them who did that?
We let them know that they no longer have 51%.
And do you
and the
say
alley
who it
wouldn't go.
was?
No.
Okay.
But it would be obvious if you take your name off, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, come
and
on.
they may go back and double check with the people that
I have, just an example, Alderman Burris. I have another issue of alleys. They've been working on it for about a year and a half, maybe going into the second year in the 1800 block of Ashland and Wesley, the Smith Park neighbors, and they've not been able to get their 51% yet, and it has to deal with because there's public housing on Emerson, which also borders, which knocks them out, like I think it's 4 units there, or 3 units, and then some other issues, but they are still trying. I was at a block club meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, and they still have it on their agenda because a lot of the people want it, some people don't. And I don't know if they'll get it or not, but they're still trying. So I really do think that people who say no and don't want it, they really do say no, and don't feel really intimidated by it because they're not signing it.
25 years.
Yeah, so we'll see. But we will review it and have another discussion on this particular issue. Okay, but for tonight, for the alley paving on Leonard and Wesley, it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that gives you a 3-1. Okay. That is everything on our agenda. We have a banner discussion, okay? Thank you.
Oh, wait, I have several. I'll give her one.
Good evening, Committee Chairman Holmes, or Chairperson Holmes, and committee members, Suzette Robinson, the Director of Public Works. And I just wanted to give you an update and walk through the banner process that was approved by the committee. So one of the things that was changed in establishing the banner policy, it really had to do with the added cost of city staff and the use of the streetlight poles for advertising. So we came to council and had a couple of discussions on the use of the city light poles as well as city staff in terms of putting up and taking down the banners. So one of the criteria that was changed was that the banners would only be allowed for city-sponsored events or city-funded banners. So some examples of that would be the Central Business District Association, where they got funding from the Economic Development Fund to help pay for part of their banners. The Fleetwood Jourdain Theater that would have banners that were paid for by the Parks and Recreation Department. And then we have some Fifth Ward banners that were purchased with CDBG funds. And those are just examples of the different funding sources that make up city-funded banners and or city-sponsored events. So all those types of banners would be allowed to be on display within Evanston. Then we had, sorry.
Alderman Rainey.
Well, speaking for the 9th Ward and the 8th Ward, we'd like some banners.
I was just going to say, but CDGB no longer allows, this was back in, but I'm just so, believe me, we would have applied again. But CDGB no longer allows banners as one of the things that you can apply for.
Really?
Right, I wish Sarah's here, but I'm pretty sure that I'm correct on that. In fact, because we wanted updated banners, and it's not an allowable expense for CDGB anymore.
So in addition to that, we looked at the second criteria covers the some exceptions to the policy of city-sponsored only, and it included the local government entities, for example, the school districts, Ridgeville Park District, and the Evanston Public Library, and the display of those banners are limited to a 1-block radius of the location.
I don't want to be a problem here, but, you've got St. Francis Hospital and Evanston Hospital and Ridgeville Park District, and then on the banners, no banners on primary routes such as Ridge Avenue and Green Bay Road. I mean, why would St. Francis or Ridgeville really want to put banners not on Ridge? I mean, why?
No, they would be allowed to put their exceptions. So their exceptions.
Well,
and they can have them within a 1-block radius of their location.
I saw that, but it seems to be contradictory to say no banner, and without saying there's an exception. I mean,
Gotcha.
Maybe we could clarify it a
Okay.
little, because otherwise people are going to be.
So the next category of exceptions where entities would be allowed to have banners are hospitals and universities were specifically excluded. and that includes St. Francis Hospital, Evanston, North Shore, and Northwestern University. And again, they would be limited to a one-block radius. And that it also includes North NU Athletics and Ryan Stadium as well as within that exclusion. Or exception, I'm sorry. And the last exception is the downtown, for downtown Evanston, the downtown business district, because they have their own banners that are administered by downtown Evanston. So they have a separate exception to non-Evanston sponsored or funded banners. And then last but not least, council asked for the opportunity to look at some exceptions to highlight major anniversary milestones, like, for example, 25th or 50th anniversary, and that will require city council approval. So if we get a banner application like this, we would actually come back to AMPW and request an exception to the criteria so that those banners could be posted.
And I guess that would have been the area where they are, because I remember we had this discussion a couple years back when Second Baptist, I think, was celebrating their 100th anniversary, maybe 120, whatever.
Right.
And they could not put banners up at that time. Okay.
And then last part is the restrictions. Banners can only be displayed between May 1st and October 31st. And they would need to come down during the winter months. And then the what I would call the windy months, where, the spring rains and the storms, the banners would need to be down during that time period. And then there were also a restriction of no banners on primary routes with 4 lanes of traffic, and that includes Ridge Avenue, Green Bay, and Dempster. And that was due to limiting the amount of distractions that would be along those corridors when it's a 4-lane traffic, and we wanted drivers to pay attention. And the exclusions would be where the business districts encounter those roads, like the Central Street Business District actually has some businesses that are on Green Bay. The hospital would also be St. Francis with its front on Ridge, as well as Evanston North Shore Ridge frontage would be excluded from that as well.
Okay. Alderman Burris.
Has the banner on Gray Park, corner of Ridge and Main, been addressed yet? I've been asking, I think, for 2 years now for that to be addressed. It's a dangerous situation there. Those poles fly all over. It looks terrible, and I think that needs to be incorporated into addressing this, and clearly it hasn't been moved forward.
We are in the process of, we're actually designing we're designing a better display system for that corner. So Stephanie is working on a design, and we hope to bring that, and still, it probably won't get installed until sometime this fall.
Okay. Alderman Brathwaite.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually made this referral a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately, I was not at the APNW meeting when we flushed through this. The couple of things, and thank you for the update and clarification, and it helps me to understand some of the inconsistencies with seeing our business associations along the main routes and not our smaller businesses. So a couple of things you've clarified, which you've clarified that we're able to put business association signs up, and you've also clarified the anniversary, which speaks to a very angry letter that I received from ERMCO celebrating one of their big events, and they were really upset with the fact that they couldn't hold a banner. But the two issues that have not been observed, have not been addressed, and one and we kind of laughed at Alderman Holmes for being able to do it, but I have also received requests from our neighborhood groups wanting to be able to put banners up to identify the particular neighborhoods within the second ward. So I would like to be able to have a provision that they're able to do that. I guess the question will be who pays for it, since we're no longer able to use CDBG.
And I think that's also, Alderman Brathwaite, that's going to come under the signage report that's eventually going to be finished. We would know the kind of, and I know what you're talking about, because my block clubs are still waiting after getting a grant from CDGB maybe 5 years ago to put up some signage for their particular block clubs, but we were waiting on the policy to be developed, and we're still waiting. So I'm sure that would come, not necessarily banners, but some way of identifying a particular area, so that people will know that, that it's there. So I do know that we've had a couple of presentations in economic development on that, and I'm assuming we'll get a final soon.
So again, if it, with the committee's either support or recommendation, I would like to see a provision. If not, then a clear understanding of the timeline when neighborhood groups would be able to apply for those signs, and just some policy around that, and also an understanding of who pays for it. And then the second piece, of course, that I've shared with staff is just for some of our small businesses, I would like a provision that if a business would like to promote, that is the part of the business association, that they're able to do that, whether it's for a special event or for a period of time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Did you want to comment?
I maybe can shed light on a couple of those points. First of all, as those of you who are on economic development know, there was a presentation about the directional sign project a few weeks ago, a meeting or two ago. Unfortunately, we've not been able to find the sweet spot with the proposals that the consultants have brought back, so we continue to work on that. I don't have a time frame for you to come back on that. I think the point that Director Robinson was making regarding the neighborhood groups is that we're willing to work with them. I think the challenge is they're just limited funds. If a neighborhood group were to come to us and say, we have our own funds for the banners and to pay the cost for putting up the banners, I think that's allowable within the policy. We have not had any neighborhood organizations come to us say they're prepared to pay for the banners and pay the cost of putting them up. So we can certainly come back with an amendment to the policy to address that, but certainly we feel that the policy covers that.
And City Manager, would you do me a favor, please, and check with Sarah Flack just to make sure? I think I'm absolutely correct on it, because I remember a conversation I had with her, but just so that we would make sure that everyone knows that I believe CDGB does not allow banners as a cost now.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
The second issue that Alderman Braithwaite raised was the advertising for private businesses on public right-of-way. I think Mr. Farrar can speak to that. Would you please, Mr. Farrar?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Grant Farrar Corporation Counsel. With respect to the issue of small businesses doing their own banners, I believe that this issue was discussed at the prior meeting, and just to revisit that subject, that gets into the issue of content neutrality, content regulation, and commercial speech. And so the city would possibly fall afoul of challenges relative to one business being allowed to put up banners for whatever reason, celebrating whatever function, and then another business could possibly make the same request and it would be denied for another reason. It could be facially neutral denial, but it would certainly subject the city to challenges. There have been many cases where the issue of commercial speech on billboards, on signs, on banners has been litigated in the courts, and it's the law department's opinion and judgment that it would be imprudent to extend any type of policy that would permit such commercial speech, such businesses posting the banners. The other ancillary and related point is that there is always the question of tort immunity, and if a small business were to put up the banners, we would certainly insist that they be responsible for installing, for maintaining all those things to shift the risk to that entity. However, this is Cook County, this is the state of Illinois, so the city will ultimately be sued for a small business banner or any small entity banner that could fall. So I think that the policy, as developed by staff, as discussed with the committee a few times in the last couple of years, has tried to balance all these concerns, considerations, and balance the legal equities.
Thank you. Alderman Brathwaite.
Thank you for your response. I think if I could use an example, and maybe I'm not communicating this effectively, I see the west side of Evanston no different than downtown Evanston. And so what I would be curious to look at is just whatever provisions that allow downtown Evanston to advertise for their businesses and for their events, I would like to have the same opportunity for the West End businesses.
And that exists currently.
Okay.
So if a business association wished to come up with a banner program similar to downtown Evanston, that would certainly be allowable.
All right.
I think the issue is the logo of a business, shop at Wally's clothing store. That's the issue. The issue of saying, welcome to the West End of Evanston with Wally's clothing store on the bottom, that's what we see in the downtown. I think the new Central Street banners may also have something like that. I'm not entirely sure. It's a pretty common thing for business associations to do to raise money. Again, downtown Evanston's been doing it for some time. I think we've seen it periodically in other business districts. So any part of the city who wants to do that, has an established business association, that's perfectly fine.
Fantastic. Okay.
Great.
That completes our agenda for today.